listening to the Millennials Choice Show, Canada's most trusted podcast on all things real estate, finance, and entrepreneurship. Here's your host, Matthew Ablakan.
What's going on, everybody? Matthew Ablakan here, and I am excited to have our guest today. Her name is Lisa Patel. She's the current president of the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, and she's the founder and owner of the Lisa Patel Sales Team. And I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome, Lisa.
Matthew, I have to just say, I just got this over fulfillment of joy just listening to your jingle to start us off. I was just like, I love it.
Thank you. It was one of those things. I met that person that's on the intro. I met her at an event where I was invited to speak, and a lot of people turn down speaking engagements because maybe they're not getting paid or the time factor is not worth it for them. But I remember that specific event, and it's opened so many doors, including this person who works with Z103 and is very talented, just saying, yeah, I'm willing just to do it for you guys, just to help you guys out.
That's amazing. Yeah. So that's why the voice sounds so familiar. I'm like, this is such a great one. Okay. Yeah. But anyways, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with you today. And I know that we're going to talk all kinds of things.
All kinds of stuff. So for our audience that's listening, thank you. And as you know, we don't script anything. So I'm going to ask Lisa maybe some hard questions, maybe some easy questions. We're going to talk real estate. That's, something we have in common. And first of all, tell us about your background. I was reading some information, but I want to hear it from you. How'd you get into the business of real estate? Tell us about your upbringing.
You know what? My background is so diverse, and the easiest way to say it, it's messed up.
Messed up in a good way, or in
a good way. You know what? I am so grateful and fortunate. I grew up with entrepreneur parents, so being a third generation entrepreneur. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. And my parents, I call them the wild and crazy entrepreneurs. I know that people have retaken the term entrepreneur and recreated it to, seniorpreneur, this, that. But they were just wholehearted entrepreneurs got married over 50 years ago and came to Canada and said, okay, you know what? They had to even work from different places. So my mom took a nursing job in, I think it was back then, it was Winnipeg, and my dad was in Montreal. They made their way to Toronto, and right from there, it was just, they owned and operated 18 different businesses across Ontario, from hotels, motels. We owned the Toronto Argonauts t-shirt factory. They were clothing designers.
That's cool.
And to grow up with entrepreneurs like that, you naturally attain the flair and desire for entrepreneurship. And it was really funny because many years later, I discovered that I'm a stat that, entrepreneur parents that have 4 children, one of the 4 become entrepreneurs. And of course, I'm that one of the 4. But that wasn't just it. I remember looking at my mother when I was a kid and said, Mom, I know a couple things. I know I'm going to be famous. I know that I'm going to be wealthy, and I know I'm going to take care of you the rest of my life. And I also knew that if you asked me what I was going to do as a child, I said, I'm going to be a host on television, which I did do later on. But I also knew at some point that I would own my own business. So when I was a teenager, I put this business plan together because I thought I was going to own my own restaurant. I already had these plans, and I was like, all right, let's submit them to the bank, all these things. So I already had the desire. And then even in my childhood, I created another little family business that my parents didn't know about, and hopefully they've forgiven me all these years. But when I was going to school, in grade school, I was like, I need to make money. Right. And, it was because my life was always evolved around our businesses. So I would go to school and then I would go to the shop. It was basically it. Or when we owned the motels, I would be cleaning motels. So if you ask me how to make a bed, I will teach anybody the best way. But bathrooms are not my friends. But definitely what I did is I was like, I literally took the gum, the candy, all of those things. And just like if I had a trench coat and would go to the next day to school and be like, all right, who wants some? Divvy up. All right, all right, 50 cents, all right? And I was selling gum, I was selling candy, and then I decided to sell wrapping paper, and I got my sister involved, and we were just going wild, making some little cash flow, and eventually mom and dad did find out the truth, but that's another story. So my childhood is very dynamic in that sense, and then of course in my teenage years, it wasn't enough to be involved in school on a volunteer basis, be involved in community, but I also, and work in the family business, I also needed to take jobs elsewhere. So I did. So I had this, I guess, established, ingrained in me with this mentality of, work hard for what you believe in this world and all those things, and continue to give back. And of course, I don't believe in those sentiments of the aspect of work hard. It's about being smarter about your choices. And because life is so short, my advice to anyone out there today is, take every day as your last and live it to the fullest. And it's not about, if you're going to get into business, it's not about working hard. It's about looking at something in a different view of eyes, because nothing is difficult. We just make it difficult for ourselves. But so that is a little bit of my childhood. And then if you take me down, down the road, I mean, I've been in every industry. So I did end up being a host on television with
Nice.
Rogers. So we had a green show until, Rogers turned around and said the environment was not so important at that time. So that was the end of those days.
They're gonna regret that very, very soon.
And I think we're gonna see, you're absolutely right. We're gonna see so much more come up. So I've just been all over. I ran in politics twice. In my early 20s, I ran in politics, and unfortunately, the hardest part was losing. Not just once, but going back out there and putting your whole life out to the world and doing it again. And when your heart and intentions are in the right place, the hardest feeling for anybody is that level of rejection and shame that comes with it when you lose. And it's a matter of picking yourself up and saying, okay, this isn't my time to do this, and that there's other things in the world that I need to do. So I think the emphasis of my life has always been on focusing on that it's not about me that I'm here for, my purpose. My purpose is bigger, and it's for generations to come. And I know I've taken you down a slur of different avenues.
That's amazing though, because right now your focus as the president of TREB, people might just see that and just say she's another realtor who's, wanted to volunteer and do all that. But you have all this experience and upbringing that has shaped you into who you are today to make you that person that you are now, the president of TREB.
You know what? And even going down that route was a whole other ballgame. I got into, there's real estate and then there's organized real estate.
Right.
And the organized real estate space was so different from the real estate space. What the things that people do not see or know, you sit there going, and if you were to walk in and listen to it, you would just almost want to be where am I? This is what happens in this industry. And so that was a learning curve. When I go back 7 years ago and think about, my time of giving back to TREB, and of course, actually, Matthew, I have to actually ask you, can you say the TREB with rolling the R?
TREB?
Oh, he does. He's got it. Amazing. I'll have to learn that from you. Jeez.
Yeah. I actually didn't know they changed the name until recently. I was on their website and I said, TRREB. I don't remember it. What's the extra R? And then regional. I mean, it makes sense.
You know what? It's really funny. I will never forget when we were to be in person and we had one of the economic outlooks, and we had all these ministers joining us, and one of them got onto stage and was like, oh, you have an extra R now. I see. I thought it was like Tony the Tiger. We're adding the extra R in there.
Right. And that's where it started?
Well, that's when the name just recently changed, and people were trying to understand the extra R. But it was just because our members, right. I mean, we have over 62,000 members across the GTA. It's no longer just a Toronto thing.
Yeah. Okay, so how many members? Just over 62,000?
Over 62,000. Yeah.
So those are when you guys say that, that's salespersons and brokers, or brokers of record?
That is correct. Yeah.
Right. So
I mean, that's not taking into administration, because then we would be way above that.
Yeah. For example, we have an admin, we get the administrator license, the authenticator, and all that stuff. So
we'd probably be, if we added those numbers in, I think we're probably more in the 68,000, mark.
Yeah. So it's Canada's largest real estate board, but I heard somewhere it's
we're actually the world's largest real estate board.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I've said that before, but I heard it and I never verified it, so I wasn't sure.
Well, we always got to give homage to our home, of course. So so we are Canada's, but we are also the world's largest. 100%.
That's awesome. There was a report that came out maybe in 2019 or 18 where it was from Treb, I believe, and they were talking about the stats pertaining to the volume of business that's done, like on a percentage basis amongst all the realtors, all the licensed realtors. And it was kind of like 50% of them not make in terms of dollar amounts, but either perform like one transaction or less in a given year. So let's say we took that number, applied it to the 60,000. It's like 30,000 of realtors are maybe doing zero business.
Well, I always go back to the golden rule, 80-20, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. So the one thing though,
I know you're one of the active ones.
definitely keeping that stat up. One of the things though that I've heard do you ever listen to Grant Cardone?
The name sounds so familiar. You got to put a picture of his
He's
face.
American. He's a sales trainer. He's a real estate guy. He's really big right now on social media. He just did the Undercover Billionaire season 2.
It all sounds so familiar, and I think it's just one of those like fog moments. But
he wrote 10X. He wrote 10X.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah. So he has come out vocally, and he's
also got other books too. Yeah.
And he's come out and he said, most realtors should not have their license. They're holding down the space. They're making the good ones look bad, et cetera, et cetera. Like, do we have a responsibility to now kind of filter through?
You know what? My words to anyone, I mean, listen, look at the last 14 months of what we've lived through. And if anything that we've learned through this is that we can no longer just be like, okay, slap on the hand, that's okay. Or, that it's okay. We as professionals need to stand up and fight for our industry. If we want to talk about professionalism, then we have to take it to the next level. It's one thing when we rely on boards and associations, because the reality, the boards and associations can only send us recommendations and reminders. And then we've really, as a community of realtors, we need to step up the game ourselves and continue to educate brokerages within our brokerages about levels of professionalism, examples of what is taking place, and how do we better ourselves, right? Awareness is always the key. And the challenge here is we get so tied up into the business that we say, oh, it's okay. Well, the next time I'll let them know I'm too busy. Well, you know what? How are we ever going to change the game? How are we ever going to take away the stigmas that are associated to realtors, that are associated to the industry? And only we together can do this. It can't be just one effort. And so individually, like, I had mentioned to you just before we got on today, like my own experience, had clients, like first-time buyers that are so excited about the process. And the one place that they're ready to make an offer on, get a deposit check. And all of a sudden you find out the unit is sold. And no communication, yet they're supposed to be holding offers today. That's not acceptable.
It's happened to me so many times. But there's those examples. I'm sure we could tell stories. That's right? Best practices for sure. I had an agent. What do you think about this? So my background, we're born in Canada, my brother and I, but my parents came from the Middle East in the mid 80s. They met here, they got married here, and then shortly after they had us. So I come from the immigrant parents too, and I have stories where I had 2 storage lockers in high school selling Jansport backpacks, hair straighteners.
Oh my gosh, we're like buds. We should have had a whole factory together.
Seriously, by now, and trading Pokemon cards, like all kinds of stuff. And I had an agent the other day. It was a town that's about like maybe 3 hours north, maybe 4 hours north of Vaughan, and I'm inquiring about a particular property. And I asked the agent, I said, look, this is what I want to put in writing. And it's funny because I said it over email, and I wanted a 3-week conditional period upon due diligence. And the guy responds saying, I don't know what that means, the due diligence. And it's on a vacant piece of land. Like 3 weeks is not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. He goes, it might be a Toronto thing. He said, he's an agent. And he puts it in an email. And I'm like, so first and foremost, like it's I thought it was pretty standard. And secondly, I'm not from Toronto anyway, so it's not like I don't know what you mean by that. And I left it there. But don't you think that's a little discriminatory?
Of course. You know what? Words have power. Words have meaning, right? And if we're going to put statements out there, we need, I am about to say this, oh my goodness. In the words of the CEO of TREB, it is evidence-based decisions, and so if we're gonna put something out there, we need the evidence to back it up, to support it. We can't just be putting things out there for the sake of putting out there. So listings, all of that stuff, like, your material, like even square footage, go pay that little extra, make sure that everything
get
is
the floor
there.
Plans, we do all, even we do it for rentals, believe it or not.
That's good, but that's important. I mean, the data, we talk about data, the integrity of data. I mean, TREB invests so much money in protecting our data. Then why aren't we as professionals doing those little extra things?
So you brought up a really, really good point about the data. So most people are not aware of what happens with respects to even court decisions and things like that. And now there's certain companies that have access to sold statistics and sold data and people's information. You think that's going to be the downfall of the everyday realtor? Or do you think, because this is what I think that more information is good. Mm-hmm. And I think that a realtor can position themselves in any kind of environment as the expert.
You know what? You just answered your own question though.
Yeah.
And the reality is, even though data is all around us, how many people actually understand it? It's just like if I said a statement, it could be interpreted into 10 different ways. Right. It doesn't mean that either one of those ways are correct. And you as the professional know better. You live it, you breathe it, you see it on a daily basis, and you deal with it on a daily basis. So as much as like we have clients, consumers, all of those things that think that they understand all of this, or send you stats to state this is what's really happening, the reality is firsthand. And I think the realtor experience is gold. And even as we continue to progress in this world of technology, that experience and that level of knowledge and education is always going to play an important role to human connection.
Yeah, and I agree. And I hear a lot of people saying that, technology is going to replace the realtor. And even in our mortgage division, we have like people talking about getting mortgages through ATM machines now in certain parts, I think, of the States. And I think it's coming here too. But the reality is, like, I always told my team, and I learned this very early on because my background's in teaching. Mm-hmm. I went to school for teachers college and all that. So I said, if you can educate your clients, even by giving them the information and you educate them, they will see you as the expert. And that's not replaceable.
And you just said it best. I mean, and here you go. Anybody listening, you heard it from the teacher himself.
The teacher. So what do you say to those people when they say technology is a bad thing? You know
what? There's already studies out there. I think it was the Canadian Real Estate Association even put a study a couple of years ago about this. And I'm pretty sure NAR did as well. And that's the National Association of Realtors. But I believe that the studies still show that the human connection and that the actual realtor is still going to be an important role, no matter how far we advance into technology. And now with respect to your question on technology, well, technology is going to continue to upgrade, right? I mean, this industry has seen upgrades. And, I think back TREB has celebrated its last 100 years.
Yeah, congrats to all of us, I guess.
Exactly. And we also be proud. Like, we're part of an organization that has been around 100 years.
That's huge.
Yeah. And if we think about like what the past experience, like those, you always hear the stories of those big manuals, and I try to remember them as kids, like when my parents, went around buying, selling properties, because that's what they did. They bought them, they established them, they sold them. And so I think about those massive manuals that people used to use, or just imagining people having to go, bicycling from one part of the land to another city just to sell something or get a signature and all of those things. So if we think about it, we've continued to upgrade. And I mean, you spoke about some real estate coaches, and what is their message always in this business is upgrade, right? Continue to upgrade your skills, upgrade your knowledge, upgrade your presence, all of those things. So we as a society continue to look and seek and say, oh yeah, we're kind of funny as human nature, right? We're in the most intelligent form, which is the human being. But we're always like, yes, we want the newest, the latest. And all of a sudden when it comes, it's like, whoa, resistance, change. Oh no.
Yeah, I agree.
And so that's mentality. So if we take mentality, just like how you mentioned about teaching as a teacher. So if we change the morale to understand that it's a mental shift in the perception of how we perceive things, then it can be only if we can look at it on a positive side.
I agree. And it's funny because I was nodding at you when you're saying the manuals and stuff. I don't even know what they look like. I've never seen them, but I heard about them. Like there was no MLS. Like that was, the listing, the sheets would come in on the morning to the office and it's like one copy for the whole office. And I was like, that's crazy. Like we've came such a far way. Like I used a fax machine a couple times in my early years, but I refused to ever use a fax machine again. And I don't have one here. I don't have a fax number.
That's why that fax didn't go through. I tried sending you one last night.
Hey, I was like, I have no fax number, no fax machine. Canon was setting up the printer. They're like, don't you want the fax? No fax. But then even the use of e-signatures, like as soon as 2016 came around and the province legislated it and said it's fine, we were on Authentisign right away as a private subscriber to it until Treb brought it in.
And I was in the same way with you. I was on DocuSign and before even Trep was looking at Authentisign and all those things. And I was like, oh, I like my DocuSign. I'm not going anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And then of course switching over, and Authentisign has been just wonderful. It's done wonders for all of us, especially when we think about this last year of the pandemic, right? Like imagine if we didn't have those technologies or those things. Like I think we're just we're presenting ourselves for the future. And I think with Treb and leading the way and all the technology that's going to be brought out in 2021 to 2022 is so exciting.
So I saw something recently, Realm.
Yes.
Is that what you're thinking about?
I am.
Tell us
new
about
system.
that. Yeah, tell us about that.
So this new system, the best way to put it, and I make this joke with the CEO all the time when we go and do broker outreaches, is I always say, think about yourselves as going to be the Amazon of the world. So all services, all packages, every aspect, all in one. And so user-friendly, like everything at your fingertips. That's where we're going to, from a system where we are today to that next step. And mind you, like it's going to be an interesting rollout process. Like we'll start to see things roll out in the fall, and then going into 2022. So there's like the back end that's going to shift, with the blockchain technology, all of those influence, and just the fact that, Terranet, all of those are just going to be a finger pulse away. It's going to be incredible of how fast you'll be able to access your information, be able to share information, create it in ways that make sense and with your brand, all of those things. So we're going into incredible ways that is going to lead the world, I think, in the real estate scape.
I love that. And then that's what I always try to encourage, like not only our team, but our family, our friends. And I say the best days are ahead. If you're constantly improving on not only like at work, on the technologies or anything like that, but on yourself,
100%.
Your best days should be ahead, God willing, nothing happens health-wise, all that stuff. The good days should be ahead. The best days should be ahead. So I love hearing that. So when you say something like blockchain, I was on a CREA, it was a CREA event recently, and one of the lawyers was talking about the new FinTrack requirements.
Yes.
And
that's a whole other story.
It's a whole other story. I know. I was sitting there and I'm like, I don't understand why there's.
Listen, I don't even understand who creates these things, these questions. I don't know.
Yeah. So the question around crypto, like we could just bring it up, like with crypto, are we going to be able to now start to see transactions like deposits and stuff being handled?
You know what? Crypto? I will tell you, we haven't had those conversations yet. I mean, all of this, I know like crypto and all that stuff isn't new. And it's making its way. So the bigger question mark, I think, is going to be around from the Canadian Real Estate Association and finding out what they're doing. So I'm sure we're going to get more updates in the months ahead. But at the moment, there's only been small talk on it, but nothing major.
Got it. Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So right now with realtors like moving in now to 2020, we're going to be in the end of 2021 and then 2022. And I think hopefully we're going to be completely out of the pandemic and all that. How do you see a realtor, or what would you recommend from all your experience, how a realtor should present themselves and create value, not only for their clients, but for other realtors around them, build a team? Like, how should a realtor do that? Because I think the old way of doing it has changed. Like, I don't think that even the brokerage model that we're used to is going to remain maybe much longer. I think there's going to be more boutique brokerages, more specialty brokerages. That's just my opinion.
Well, you also see teams blowing out, right?
Teams,
I mean, teams have grown so much in the last 10 years, right? If you think about it. So really and truly, I think fundamentals will always apply to this business, right? Touching base, the people that we meet, systems, those are so important. I mean, anybody coming into this space, anybody in this space, I mean, the key right there, I mean, you touched on this earlier, is knowledge, right? Knowledge is so valuable and powerful. And in keeping with the news and highlights, I mean, like listening to you, it gives me like joy, because here I've got somebody that's telling me, like, they were listening to something from the Canadian Real Estate Association. This is what we need to do. We need to be able to take in all this information and then take that information and digest it. What does that mean? What does that mean to me? How do I apply this to my business? And what does this mean to consumer? We've got to start thinking outside of the box and stop thinking about ourselves and start thinking about, what level of service are we providing? And what type of service are we going to provide for this world? And what does that look like? And I think that's really, before we even get into how we do business, all of those things, is understanding our own intentions for this world. And I always say to people that we have two purposes in this world, and that's to love and to serve. And so if we're going to love and serve, how are we going to do that? What does that look like? Paint that picture, set that intention, and then get into, okay, now I'm going to focus on my brand. How does my brand serve my intentions? Right. And then take the next steps of what systems do I need to apply to my business, and how am I going to hold myself accountable?
That's all good stuff. That's great stuff.
And then also, one of the things is realtors, like, there's no competition. We're
There is
all
no
here for the
competition.
same purpose. We're all here. So let's build more circles, build more chapters. And I'm hoping that in the fall, we've got this incredible women's event coming out, because it is Women's Heritage Month. And we're going to be sharing a special program that we're going to be launching. And I'm hoping that it will also bring us together more. I think of the realtor family. I think of realtors as a family, and wherever you go in the world, you just naturally love each other and find a way to, whether you do business in the future or have a friendship or whatever it is. And I think we need to get more on that model too. That we're all in the same playing field.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and there's way more than enough work to go around. But I find that
that's mindset too, right?
But I just find that you can be that way, and there's a lot of people that are not that way, and that's the problem. Like But
that's also the world.
It's the world.
You know what? You know what? There's I always call it. I go back to Sanjay Nath's principles, and he wrote this book called 10-10-80. 10% of the population that says, yes, we will fight for the world. And then 10% that are like, no way, get me the heck out of here, right? And then you've got the 80% of the population that are saying, well, I don't know what to do. Do I do this? Do I not? What do I do?
Right.
So, and even if we take that formula into our business, and we see the same concept, you've got your 10% champions that are like, Matthew, I love you. What's their next deal? And then you got the 10% that is like, I don't know if I'll use Matthew again.
Yeah.
And then you've got that pool that is like, well, Matthew, I don't know, like give us a reason, show us a way.
Right.
And so we need to like bring more of those cheerleaders all together and say, okay, let's create more awareness. Let's create more buzz. Let's shape this world, not change this world, shape this world.
That's great. That's really, really great. And it's funny because the 2 or 3 times that I've had a deal intersect with another agent that claims it could have been their deal, I've been on the other end saying, hey, listen, like, let's just do the deal. Like, what do you want to do with commission? You want to split it? Split it. I don't care. But let's just do the deal.
And
like,
see, that's also mentality too,
like,
right?
Yeah.
And I apologize for cutting you off there, but like,
No worries.
you know what? I like money, abundance, wealth, all of those things. It's all mindset. You know, if we look at this world as abundant, then we and feel and see it and believe that it is, then it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I've had those experiences with, even when I propose those things, those other agents are the ones that are like, no, well, why should we, and this and that. And I'm like, well, we're working on it together. Like if we're showing the client the same thing and the client is asking both of us, they don't know any better about how the industry works. It's up to us. So would you rather we just continue our relationship together and build it, and it's built on solid grounds? Like when we go through a deal like that, it's great that we do that and we can resolve it by, let's say we split the deal and we can service the client together. And I've never had an issue when we did it that way.
And you know what? I also think there's a wake up call. You know, like everything in life is a lesson. So, you know, to the ones that choose not to, and, you know, choose not to say, no, you know, my commission is mine, I'm not sharing, or whatever it may be, whatever the case may be. Like it eventually that will be your lesson to learn.
It catches up. And the reality is it sounds cheesy and it sounds new age, but it's been it's been an old principle.
Listen, the principles have been there for like
years, thousands.
I was going to say 1000 BC, this, that, right? And we've just keep interpreting it in our own fashion or facade or ancestrally. It could be the way that our systems are made. You know, just like how like when we first came on, I was talking about how my parents were big believers of, you know what, you can do great things in this world, go do them, believe in him and go work hard for him. Right. And so I told you, I don't believe in the work hard mentality anymore.
Right.
You know, after like life lessons after life lessons, I look at it like, no, you got to be smarter about what you're putting out there and what your intentions is to this world and how you go about it.
I agree. And one of the principles that I think is so important, you said it when you said you believe we're here to love and serve others, is the serving others part, because that's all our business is about. If we just focus on the real estate business,
you hit the nail on it.
You're serving clients
100%. Yeah. And so I always say, you know, we're here when you take yourself out of the equation and look at the bigger picture. At the end of the day, we're not only here for the same reasons, but we're looking at service in a whole bigger capacity because we're looking beyond ourselves. Yeah. And I think about like generations to come. I mean, I became an auntie a couple of years ago, but I was also so let's talk commitment. Okay. Sure. So I've served a lot of volunteer organizations and since my childhood. And I remember there was one, I was sitting on land division years ago and then I had somebody on land division kept bothering me and saying, Lise, you'd be a great big sister. The big sister organization needs you. And I'm like, I don't know. That's children. That's a big commitment. I don't know. I have to think about this. It took me like a year and a half to like finally say, okay, I'm willing to, but on my terms. So I went to Big Sister. I looked at them and I'm like, listen, I'm happy to do this, but under these conditions. Listen, don't give me no child. I'm not about learning about seatbelts, any of those things. Like, give me a teenager I can relate to. We're going to have a great time, whatever. And whatever they need, I'm happy to be there for them. And so when I think about, you know, those levels of commitment that we make in our lives, and I think of the impact that I had on that, you know, that impressionable mind, and then becoming an auntie years later. And I think about now, like my nephews and their generations, and I want to make sure that the world is even better for them.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's been a big motivating factor for me too, because I'm not an uncle yet, or we don't have our own kids yet, but
it's coming.
It's coming. It's coming. Those are some big promises. Sarah's in the other room like, do you know something I don't know?
One step at a time, baby steps.
Yeah.
That's the key to life, right? Baby
small steps consistently over time. The other thing is that I was thinking about was with respects to community service.
Yes.
Because you've tried to encourage me to join different kinds of
we're not done, Matthew.
networks.
I've got big plans for you. Don't worry.
I got really big plans for myself too. It's like, but it's these like, how important is it for a realtor to really get involved? Like, I got involved in the Young Professionals Network years ago, like when I think it first came out.
That's like different strokes when you look back. Like even my own experience, like getting involved with organized real estate, very different then to now. I mean, I remember, and you, I know you're going to share with me a story, but I remember like being on TREB's board. I mean, I had a great time when I was just a volunteer before I got on the board. When I got on the board and taking over committees and being the chair, and I'm sitting here going like, why are we focusing on this element, like partying and whatever? We have no interest in that. You know, give us the professional development, give us like the ways that we can help the world, help the industry, all of those aspects. So it was like even taking TREB's YPN to a whole new level years ago. And today, you know, they're doing a phenomenal job. And I think that our committees are thriving. I mean, we've had a record-breaking applications this last year.
Nice.
So of interest. So that, to me, that tells us one thing, that we have now created a buzz of people that want to care about not only the communities that they serve, but their industry. And then I've also witnessed in my time as president is this love and appreciation for TREB, which I'm so proud of. Like, I love you guys. Like, I sit there, like, I can't tell you. I go home, I think about it at night, and I'm just like, just the passion, the energy. And I think that speaks to me as a realtor. When I look at the energy, passion, the commitment that's put out there, and I truthfully watch realtors all day long.
Yeah, but you're doing a great job at it too. Like, I don't remember another president of TREB. Like, I learned about you because of that Vaughan Chamber event we did.
Yes.
Where I was hosting, and you were one of
that feels like months back. Wow.
I know.
It was
months back, right? It was earlier in 2021. But then the other thing is to keep in mind, it's like, you also don't know how many people you're impacting that don't say anything to you.
That's true. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. But but you going back to your question about give back, any opportunity to give back, I always say you must do. Like, our purpose when we talked about love and serve, there you are. Like, serve your communities, serve your profession, serve whatever you possibly can. And even if you have, and I always say, like, everything is timing and gut instinct. So if you already have this desire, follow it. Don't just sit back and say, okay, next year. No, follow it. See where that road takes you. You know, even in my own process, I never expected to be TREB president. When I look back, like, I loved being on the board of directors because I was like, wow, like my table was very different back then. You know, I was around a table of people that were in the industry like 10, 20, 50, 30 years, and that were mainly like broker owners and managers. And I was like, ooh, okay, how am I going to take this? I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this as a wealth of knowledge. And I'm going to tune in, listen, and see what I need to know, learn, and grow from. And then, of course, it was somebody that plugged it into me, looked at me and said, hey, do you know you should run for president? You can do this, Lisa. And I was just like, And, you know, I have to sit back. I take everything back to my own soul self. And I guess I'm a soul person, so everything is connected. And I needed to say, like, is this the right time for me? Is this what I need to do? And ultimately, you know, what's my intention to this? Okay, that I needed to help shape the industry. And so I went out there and ran. And I will tell you, like, Matthew, I lost. And when you lose in 2 political campaigns and for the first time lose in an election campaign to your industry, you know, an industry that you are so passionate and love. And I mean, all my other elections to TREB board was like, I won. And here I lost as president. I was just like, it was like devastating. I can't even explain it. And then I seen things that people will never understand. Like I went through cyberbullying. I went through bullying. I went through all kinds of like hate that I sat there going like, wow, this is a whole other side of this industry that I do not like. Like, it also makes me step back and say, do I want to stay in this industry? Do I want to be part of this? Because should not be happening. And just attacks that you just never expect to see. And so I've seen things on a whole new level. And I mean, it's all going to go down with my memoirs one day. But but the reality was, somebody came back to me and said, Lise, I need to have lunch with you. I want to talk to you. And I'm like, okay. And then I get that big thing of, you need to run for prez. And I'm like, I don't know. And after that last experience of like all of that stuff, I really want that in my soul because I don't deserve it. And so, of course, I couldn't read my heart. So for 6 months, I'm like trying to read my heart. Do I want to do this? Do I know? Is this the right thing? Is this? And that's when I just like called, I call it my spiritual friend out in Hawaii. And I said, Alan, I can't read my heart. I've tried several times and I just can't read it. And so we do one meditation and instantaneously, it was just like that. It was just like, he felt it, I felt it. We like open our eyes and we're like, yes. And he's like, you know what to do. And I said, yeah. And
now you're the president.
And so it was like the next day I walked into my office, I looked at my assistant, I was like, drop everything. It's campaign season.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So the world, you never know what your purpose or like, I mean, you set out to do great things. You set out just to be involved, just to inform yourself. I mean, and you also get to meet great people. Like I've in my discovery of not only organized real estate and real estate, I've connected to so many amazing people, of realtors across Ontario, across Canada, even and Tribe has also partnered boards now to, has been to Miami, to Florida. We became partners this last year to SILA, so all of South America, and also to France. And so now I have this collection of colleagues or family that I call around the world. And
that's so valuable.
And so you just never know, right? So I say, like, you never know why you're meant to go down this. And now I understand completely why the universe has said no to me the first time for this role. And then why the universe is like, all right, girl, here you go. We're going to give you the most challenging year and have fun. And I'm like, okay, we're going to just take it up a notch.
Yeah, that's true because you got elected in 2020, right?
That is correct.
So that was the 100-year anniversary of Treb as well.
That is correct.
And that was also the COVID year. So all that rolled into one. Yeah, all rolled into one. Wow. I noticed recently, last summer actually, summer of 2020, I was walking around the neighborhood and I was with Sarah and I said, I'm so pissed off about this whole master bedroom thing. Like, did you know it comes from like these slave times? Like, it's not like, it's called master for a reason. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm telling you, I've read somewhere and then I went deep into it and it's legit. Like, that's like, I don't understand why builders just don't rename that. Mm-hmm. And then recently we saw that now it's been changed to.
And here's the crazy part to this. Like, so I started a task force. It was called Diversity and Inclusion for Treb. And we're doing we've got a lot of really big news to come in the months ahead, but including the survey results that were conducted by our members. And, we sat around that table and I'll never forget because it's almost a year later and said, okay, well, what do we think about this? And a lot of people, and including myself, didn't see the other side of things of why it was important to change or why it was important to look at it in another perspective. And so again, hindsight is 2020, a perception is 2020. Mm-hmm. And so the reality was, it took months of going back and forth on this before we came to that decision. And we didn't even release it to the media. We only released it to our members. Yeah. And then it blew up in the media. And I know fellow presidents in Ontario called me and said, oh, I was just interviewed because we decided to make the same change. And they're like, well, are you following Treb? Is that what it is? Yeah, and I started laughing. I'm like, oh my goodness.
But that's the example of change we're talking about, right? Yeah. And we have to, our teachers used to say it, I think, all the time when we'd argue as kids in the classroom or we'd have fights. It's like, put yourself in the other person's shoes. And I think as adults, it's funny, we don't do it as often as we probably should.
And you said it best. And we got to use that example all the time, whatever state of mind, wherever we are. It's so important to like take all perspectives. One of my favorite leadership books, and I can't remember the title, but I'll never forget it because it was taking a room. You walk into that room. What do you see? Now go up to the balcony, look down into the room, and what do you see? Now imagine you're outside of that room, and what do you see? So taking in all perspectives before we even like make a decision. So it goes back to that evidence-based decisions.
Yeah, evidence-based versus, creating a story around how something should be, because that's all we do. We create stories, and then we realize. How often have you realized when it's like, oh, I totally misinterpreted that, or what that person was saying, or what they meant by that. And I think that even in real estate deals, there's a lot of ego. Mm-hmm. And if you could just remove the ego and remember why you're there. You've
said the magic words. Like I remember even in the organized real estate side, I used to see the egos. My first conference, and I remember looking at the CEO as he's introducing me to people, because this was a whole new world to me, like years back. And I looked at him and I'm like, oh my God, the biggest problem I said to this industry? And he's like, what's that? I said, ego. The ego.
Yep.
Yeah, it's sad, but and so that's like, I'll give you an example. I'm not a big person for awards and all that kind of stuff, because I've kind of shaped my life into believing, if it's not going to my grave, then it doesn't mean anything, and I appreciate like all of, the recognition, all of those wonderful things. But I think it's more important if I've done something to make you smile today. That is more impactful to my soul than, getting another something shiny and pretty to put up on the wall. And that's I think it all comes down to like experience. And when you also allow yourself to look beyond yourself.
Yeah. And it comes with the experience and wisdom, really just understanding that you're like, forget the idea of being, let's say, a realtor and having that title. Just you're just doing another thing to service people. Or you could
even call it, the best way to put it, it's the state of mind of gratitude every day. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure you do. Like, I give thanks every morning. Yeah. Thanks for another day in this world. Thanks for another breath. Right? I mean, those are how I usually start off my morning. It's like, good morning, universe. Where would you have me go today? What would you have me do today? What would you have me say? To whom? Guide and light my path. And thank you for another day, another breath, like all of those things. Like I start my day, I finish my day in the same way. And so when we can come from that mentality, and sometimes we see the things that we don't really want to see and believe that is happening in our world. It's hard, but we also have to believe that there's still hope, and hope is alive.
I agree. But this was a great conversation. Our producer was giving me the signal that, hey, you're
is he giving us the cut?
Yeah, he's giving us the cut. But we're gonna be posting Lisa Patel's information on the podcast, so you can connect with her on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and
all the fun stuff.
But
I have to thank you, Matthew. So I will say this, like my term is coming to an end, but I'm not officially done, because being TREP president is a 3-year commitment to TREP. But I just want to say, like, much love to you and your entire team. You have been so phenomenal with your messages, and even just the love for the business and the passion that I hear even in your YouTube videos and stuff. So I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you, and then share this last year together. And stay tuned, because your name will come up again for more stuff.
Oh, this is the first time I'm hearing it, but I really appreciate that too. It's the thing where you said you've connected with so many different people in your role. It's real. We speak the same language, and when you meet that person, even
like
if it's for a second, you realize it's like, okay, we're speaking the same language. So we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us and speak to our audience. And
to everybody that's listening, call Matthew.
Call Lisa. I appreciate that. And if you've enjoyed this episode, obviously we appreciate your support. We need your support in order to continue making great content. So like, share, subscribe, and invite a friend. And until next time, we're out.